So if you haven't seen this video, I decided to make a prequel to my manga to both explore things and help with my writer's block due to stuff I was working on at the time. Last video was just me talking about why. This video I'm talking about more of what I actually did and what I added since then. Last video I talked more about certain things I liked with the prequel. In this video I'm talking about what is actually in it. Starting with what exactly the phases are and mean. By the way, originally there were no phases. It ended at chapter 12, but since I liked it so much I thought I could add more. The first phase is blank, in reference to how this is a blank canvas for Shiro as he has just come to the village and is starting anew. Second phase is sketch, the build-up, which is in reference to two things. Shiro building up who he is, and the build-up to the third phase, paint. The final coating that sets everything in stone. It sets up our characters' journeys from this point on, and also foreshadows things for the future. But instead of me just summarizing all of them with the meaning of the names, I'm going to talk about how I got to making these in the first place. After realizing I wanted to do more with colors and canvas, I was basically stuck with the 13th chapter, so I wrote a chapter which basically kills the intensity by having it be chill until I eventually got inspiration in the form of JJK's Kyoto Goodwill event arc. I thought I could do something similar and got notes on what it would be. At the end of the 13th chapter, I basically reveal it and explain how people participate, and that becomes Shiro's new goal moving forward. The Goodwill event would be in the third phase, as I believe just beelining it would just make the story feel rushed. That's why we have a second phase, sketch. I'm just guessing this, but I believe sketch would still be the same if I didn't have this hypheny. Well, no build-up, but still similar to what I have. That's just because of the fact it allows me to world build. Well enough with the backstory of why these exist. Let's talk about what is blank. Blank 1 takes place 2 weeks after Shiro came to the village. If you didn't know, Shiro ran away from his original home to abandon his assassin lifestyle as he realizes how wrong it was. Kinda similar to Killua in a way. This is all explained through an internal monologue, similar to how Izanagi is told through a monologue. The main difference is that Shiro is telling this in first person. C&C is basically a light novel after all. When Shiro is all physically healed, we first see his casual lifestyle as he is finally able to relax, and we learn of his enjoyment of reality shows and movies. Mr. Ice on a Thursday tells Shiro that he would be going to school to give him some other things to do, and also help him adjust to the village as school is an easy way to make friends. We then see Shiro go on basically what is a 10-day training arc, so he doesn't have to be so behind compared to the others. This training arc is assisted by Mr. Ice and Lin Ice, Black's mother, and during this training arc, Shiro ends up catching a glimpse of someone else. This is when he was training Kyokushin karate in the backyard, which to summarize is basically a massive cave without part of the ceiling. The home is in the entrance to that cave. This causes there to be a lot of steps to get down to the actual backyard area, and it's massive in itself as Mr. Ice has a lot of pet beasts that need to move around. This causes it to be hard to see who exactly this person is, or hear them clearly. He sees the silhouettes. One is clearly Lin and the other is a guy.
He guesses that there is someone else living there due to how there are 8 bedrooms.
No way all of them are guest bedrooms. The thing is that he has never encountered them. The chapter is called Attain, Access, Achieve, in reference to how Shiro is doing all of this to access school. The next chapter is Shiro basically being the new kid. He goes to school on Monday. I'll put up his timetable on screen. And we see small hints that Shiro is being treated differently because of his above average soul density. Soul density is basically this thing which represents talent and is measured in percentages. This is only mentioned at the start of the chapter. The rest of the chapter is us seeing Shiro adjust to school life with the help of the 2 people assigned to him. Those are Astgona and Toa, 2 twins. The first thing of the day is homeroom, which, lucky for Shiro, turns out to be Mr. Ice. He works here. Homeroom is pretty basic as it's the start of a new term, start of January. The only thing is how halfway through a window is open from the outside, and we see someone climb through it and then take a seat at the back. Nobody else pays attention to this except from Shiro due to how this isn't normal to him. This is important for later, so that's why I mentioned it. We see him interact with classes and see some unique things, like how they learn Latin. After those lessons and breaks, we get to do something interesting. Technically not a double lesson, but it is. Geology, then phaldemology. In the last video, I explained what phaldemology was, the study of alchemy and seals. Alchemy uses shards to manipulate the nature aura in the air in different ways, basically making circuits. Geology obviously ties into this. This leads to their double lesson with Sydney, a recurring character that I'll probably talk about later, so I'm mentioning her now. She has a very unique way of talking where she repeats words or phrases, but it's very clear she isn't stuttering. This makes her hard to follow sometimes, but when she makes sense, she makes sense. Sydney teaches both of these subjects due to her skill set being good with bridging the gap between geology and alchemy. We find out they actually have a second phaldemology teacher, but that's in their next phaldemology lesson. After this and break, they have a geography lesson. At this point, Shiro has interacted with nearly everyone in his class except for 3 people. For 2 of them, Razor and Blave, he sees them interact with this class a lot. With info from the twins, he finds out they are best friends but also rivals. They both score the top in this class, so there is a reason for them to be competitive. By the way, their teacher is Jet, Sydney's brother, which leads us to discover they use their first names. After school, we see Shiro go home and excitedly tell Lin about his day. After this, he goes to play with the beasts. We find out that was the first time Shiro called that place home. Lin thinks it's cute. The chapter ends with the reveal that she actually already knows Shiro's origins. To summarize the next 2 chapters, we see Shiro finally interact with Kuro. He's the same guy who climbed through the window.
This happens through the Kyokushin karate class. Bet you never expected me to pull that one out.
To summarize what happens, their teacher makes Kuro and Shiro spar, even though he has clearly been informed of how Shiro is different, both when it comes to physically and soul density. This paired with the fact that Shiro actually used a different martial art while Kuro stuck to just KKK allowed Shiro to win. After the win, Kuro isn't very receptive to the sportsmanship part as he knows it's bogus. However, since Zyraloth clearly takes favorites, that doesn't matter and he doesn't care about how Shiro won. Still encouraging him, this causes Kuro to straight up leave the class, not showing any anger or anything. His face is just blank. This confuses Shiro. After class, Shiro is given more praise, this time by his peers, so he feels good about himself. Like Sydney's lesson, KK is a double lesson, so right after it is break. Then it's technology where we see that they are working on theory, which allows a lot of time for them to talk. After school, he hangs out with the twins, where we learn that their mother is the lead surgeon while their father is a military medic who is currently away. When Shiro gets back home, he is surprised to see that Kuro is there, talking with Lin. Kuro straight up ignores Shiro, even while trying to get his attention, continuing his conversation with Lin before leaving with a duffel bag. After that, Shiro decides to ask Lin about who Kuro is, where she ends up using a metaphor that Shiro misunderstands, which only gets worse when he asks Mr. Ice later, and because of what Lin said, he comes to a different conclusion than intended. The next day, Shiro gets to have his first interactions with Razor and Blave at a vending machine. Blave is also someone who came from outside the village, and he ends up giving Shiro some of his perspective after being here a while. Blave also ends up pointing out to Shiro how his win against Kuro wasn't valid at all, wasn't the proper spar it was supposed to be. At one point of the conversation, Razor ends up throwing one of his wrapped burgers towards an area. It's here we see Kuro catch it with one hand, his iris red for some reason. Shiro feels an ominous projection from it in the moment. Shiro then asks Razor where he can find Kuro at break, as he realizes he hasn't seen Kuro anywhere at all. We find out Kuro stays in the attic of the school normally. The attic is closed off to everyone else though. Razor advises him not to try. We see Shiro try anyway and use his assassin skills to sneak there. He plans to find out more about Kuro. During the short conversation they have, we see Kuro repeatedly throw things which stabs into the wall next to Shiro. Shiro analyzes and realizes that Kuro isn't aiming for him. The accuracy is what is brought up into question though, as Kuro isn't even looking at him. Kuro ends up leaving out a window again. Shiro goes to check where he landed, but turns out Kuro didn't land. He somehow got onto the roof. The next time they interact is in PE, and to summarize this incident, Shiro ends up stepping into what he thinks could have been a start of a fight between Kuro and Ribao as he sensed the bloodlust from Kuro. A familiar cold bloodlust that reminds him of his brother. He confronts Kuro. This results in Kuro taunting Shiro, and Shiro ends up breaking the bat Kuro was holding, which finally gets the teacher's attention as they arrive. The confrontation continues though, until we see Shiro attempt to knock out Kuro with a chop. However, unexpectedly, it doesn't work on Kuro. Kuro's face turns blank because of this, as he is confused by the fact that Shiro seriously just tried to knock him out. All of his interest in the agreement fades and he starts walking away, only for 10 seconds later to snipe Shiro in the head with the rest of the bat, causing him to fall. Kuro smugly smiles from a distance. When Shiro gets up, we find out Toa had a fight with Kuro because of this, where Kuro knocked out Toa with one punch. The teacher suggested for Shiro to see the school medic, Razor and Blave over to take him. Blave lifts him up and carries him, but before making it here, they take a detour where they end up telling Shiro he kinda just escalated the situation and warning Shiro to never fight Kuro when he has some sort of weapon. That's where chapter 4 ends. Since this is getting long, I'm just gonna blitz through this now, talking about only important moments. Shiro gets sent on an errand in the village where we see things like alchemy being used for escalators and elevators. Just world-building things. This is Shiro's first time getting a look of the wider, or should I say taller, Kazumura. Kazumura is basically like if you build a village with these rocks that extend up vertically. Most of the village is actually in the sky. This is until he sees Kuro parkouring and he decides to check it out due to something else Razor and Blave said. It's here we get to an abandoned area of the village and we find out Ribao and two others are actually bullies who are bullying someone else that Shiro recognizes from PE. We then see Kuro make an entrance, coldly tell the guy to run before we see him beat them up while toying with them. During this, Shiro thinks about the situation. Did Kuro know this was going to happen? Did Kuro come to save them? Or is this about the PE stuff? How did Kuro know when this was going to happen? Etc. His thinking is then cut off when he suddenly dodges a rock flung at him. Turns out Kuro knew Shiro was following him the whole time. After that, we cut to Shiro back home, where Mr. Ice learns about the bad metaphor Lin used and tells Shiro just not to get involved with village drama. We see a montage of the next few days where Shiro has only a few interactions with Kuro, where he doesn't call him by his name just either, Blue Eyes, Chihuahua, or Pup. Moreover, Shiro confirms that the bloodlust Kuro has is unique, as he does get into an incident with someone else, who also did show bloodlust, but it was less menacing. The montage ends with one weekend, where Mr. Ice sends Shiro on an errand to deliver something. It takes him to the highest place in the village, where there is only one house. This turns out to be Kuro's home, and where Shiro sees Aika for the first time. It's here the whole bloodlust thing happens again. This time happening because Kuro was annoyed at Shiro and Shiro sensed he would be punched, so instinctually dodged. It's here we see Kuro outright deduce what is going on with the bloodlust by using all the information we already have, like how Shiro isn't just hyper-reactive, as he didn't dodge any of his throws from earlier. It's instinctual. After Kuro gets the delivery, he tells Shiro to fuck off, and back at home he asks about Aika, and he finds out some things about her. The next relevant event I'll talk about is their beastology classes test. They basically have to take pictures of at least 3 beasts they find and find out facts about it, putting all of that into one project. They are made to do this in groups, and they are randomly selected. Shiro gets put with Mohi, Kreta, and Kuna. To find out more, Shiro ends up asking Mr. Ice for help, but instead Mr. Ice pays Kuro to do it instead, and it's here we learn of Kuro's insane hunting capabilities as Shiro attends one of his hunts. Moreover, it informs Shiro on the fact that both Razor was right, and that Kuro has a knack for analyzing abilities. This happens from a beast called the Anspida. It looks like a white rabbit with 4 red eyes, large whiskers, large ears that point upwards, purple, blue, and yellow markings. It can use an echolocation range of 6 studs, every stud is 1.5 feet, and allows them to perceive something, then use their lighting to accelerate their muscles and nerves to jolt away. This normally would make it impossible to hit with an arrow. Kuro then says the line,
"But everything here is the law of fear."
He then showcases how to actually catch it, by firing arrows in quick succession. The first aim to make it dodge, because while dodging in fear, it springs with all of its limbs for max distance. This leaves it open as it's not moving in a cycle anymore. This so-called opening is Kuro just snipping it in the head while it's off the ground before it can land. Shiro asks if it's the normal way to hunt this, and Kuro says no. He reveals people normally hunt these guys in pairs. After this, the only other relevant part of information is the fact there is a barrier around the village to keep dangerous things like monsters out, and the barrier is the reason why Mr. Ice can constantly teleport anywhere in the village. They aren't actually allowed to go out of the barrier because of this, but Kuro always does anyway. When with the group, Mohi ends up being pissed off at the fact they aren't getting anything unique, so he pressures the others to go outside the village. They leave to where they end up getting to a cave. As they are about to go in, Kuro makes his presence known and reveals he is there. He ends up joining them for the simple excuse that they are the perfect excuse for if they are caught. To summarize this, cave turns out to be being used by bandits, who then go to capture them. But earlier, Kuro snuck away, stole one of their guns, and he basically starts lighting the place up, which allows Mohi, Krata, and Kuna to escape to get Mr. Ice. Kuro decides to go deeper as he knows there are definitely more. Shiro stays with him because he knows it's dangerous. This leads them to encounter Degrutsev, the leader. He has some sort of confusing time manipulation power, which leads to Shiro having his leg badly damaged, and he is incapacitated, which leaves him watching the fight between Degrutsev and Kuro, where we see Kuro use his unique analyzing capabilities to discover how it actually works and how he can reverse it on Degrutsev. After that, he fucking kills him, which shocks Shiro. This is way too common for Kuro, that becomes clear. This leads into Kuro giving Shiro a monologue which starts revealing what kind of person he is. After this, he lifts Shiro out of there and they are met by Mr. Ice at the entrance of the cave, where they end up being teleported back to the village with a seal, specifically Mr. Ice's home. It's here Kuro talks about what he found in the cave, which leads to Shiro finding out what dark films are. Dark films are basically extremely fucked up videos of things like multi-ation, normally made for revenge or entertainment. The reason they are called dark films is because of the original of the same name. We find out they kidnapped people and were going to make some. That's why Kuro treated all of them so brutally. After this, Mr. Ice finally gets back, and Shiro starts talking about what happened, which leads him to question how the hell Kuro knows how to use guns, but then he realizes the answer is right in front of him. It was Lin who leaves chapter 12 with them bickering. I skipped chapters 6 to 7 and several parts of chapters 8, 9, 10, 11. Check out the document to see the full thing. Link in the description. That was a tanky explanation. That's the end of the first phase. Blank. Comment down below what you think of it. Now it's time to sketch. I promise this one would be way shorter. Sketch isn't actually completed yet, but it gets where I think making a video would be okay now. So sketch follows Shiro's school holiday as he learns about the Goodwill event from Toa and Asgona, which leads to him planning on how to get merit points. But since it's spring break, instead he does other things like playing video games. During this, he learns about the World Fighter classification system. Instinctist, Tactical, Force, Specialist, Ranger, Zoner, Manipulator, Adapter. From left to right, the ones on the left beat the right most of the time, and the ones closest to each other work well together. Those who would be opposite to each other on the octagon are opposite to each other. This leads to Shiro thinking about how to classify Kuro. He later does swordsmanship training where during a break, he sees Lin and Kuro walking outside. Lin carries a large box. Inside this box turns out to be a puppet with 6 arms and wielding 6 sheathed swords. Shiro can sense it. In his head, he says,
There's no doubting it. The ominous tones are clearly coming from the swords. They clearly are no normal sheaths either.
Shiro then watches them spar where he is amazed at the sheer speed and the fact that Kuro isn't getting it at all. The exchange lasts for 3 minutes total, until Kuro finally starts getting hit. This helps showcase Kuro's physicality. We learn more about Lin's and Kuro's friendship, as they are quite the dynamic duo. We also see Kuro rage-bait Shiro a lot, which starts getting on Shiro's nerves.
Eventually, Sydney appears with Aika, and they get Aika to spar Shiro, which is how we find out that Aika invented the sword-breaking martial art. This was not a fair fight. When back at school, Shiro goes to talk to Kuro in the attic again, and try to get Kuro to talk about himself due to something else that happened during the break. But before Shiro can question him, Kuro cuts him off and asks him if he is going to participate in the Goodwill event. Before this, there was a school-wide announcement in homeroom about it, which also reveals Kuro already has a slot for himself. Shiro casually answers. Kuro replies, saying that Shiro wouldn't. Shiro gets confused. Kuro gets up as we see him arrange some things and explain that Shiro wouldn't be able to participate the way he is now. He is too weak, too fragile mentally. The only way he fights for real is in rage, and he is clearly burying something that keeps arising. He can't even use a sword that well. Kuro leans against Shiro with one arm wrapped around him as he says in his ear that none at Wigui would take him seriously. They would see him as an animal out of his environment. With this, Kuro suddenly leaps back, which surprises Shiro. Kuro then points to Shiro's hand, tensed in knife hand, its veins popping. Kuro then says,
Now that's instinct. Kuro then casually says how he is ending this conversation here and tells Shiro to actually get serious about his life before even thinking about this again. With this, Kuro walks past. Things reach a boiling point with Shiro, and Kuro due to Shiro not understanding why Kuro is always making jabs at him. This leads Shiro to make a rash decision, challenging Kuro at what he prides the most, sword fighting. A duel where whoever concedes first loses. They are both using wooden swords. Here we see Shiro clear lying in rage as he tries to fight Kuro, and Kuro uses that rage against him due to the Black Lotus sword style, the sword style Lin taught him. Shiro says something in rage, saying that Kuro is just projecting and how they are the same. This pissed Kuro off extremely, an anger never seen before. This leads to Kuro not taking Shiro lightly anymore, and systematically taking him down, which gets more impressive as it's confirmed that Shiro is actually both faster and stronger than Kuro. Eventually, as Shiro is all bruised up and wounded, Kuro says,
You look more pathetic than when you were in that river.
Which causes Shiro to pause in his tracks, the rage washed away by realization and confusion. It was Kuro who saved him all that time ago. Kuro then beats him up badly while he monologues. Kuro sees Shiro as a coddled coward. Shiro ran from his problems while he still lives with them, around them. He would never cower. He then knocks Shiro out with a very familiar strike to the neck, this time with the sword, and it works. After this, Shiro takes time to recover before returning to school, where thanks to English, he learns how to analyze things better, and he ends up realizing he analyzed Kuro wrong. Over a week, Kuro doesn't come to school, and during that time, Shiro is left to collect merit points, while he also realizes he is hollow. There isn't much about him except for his talent, which leads him to actually do stuff like build connections with people that aren't surface level. On a random Tuesday in the middle of KK, an alarm sounds. This alarm means there is an attack on the village, so all students need to stay in class so their teachers can protect them. When there are attacks on the village, the people limited to moving is Mr. Ice, as he can teleport anywhere and anyone who doesn't teach during school hours. 12 minutes pass until something crashes down through the ceiling. Surprise, surprise! Someone ordered Kuro with a creature biting down on his arm on top. Right after this, Mr. Ice teleports in, teleports the creature away, then a few seconds later teleports back to check on Kuro and get an actual rundown of the situation. After this, he tells Kuro to go see Astukai and get healed, as he is extremely battered up, not just his arm. Kuro doesn't just refuse. He ends up going on an enter-tangent, absolutely crashing out at this whole fucking situation, and from his words, we find out he has been fighting for 8 hours. First assumed to be a metaphor is revealed not to be in the next series of chapters, Episode Kuro. Completing this is why I waited until making this video. Episode Kuro twists the story by focusing on Kuro and what led up to him crashing through the roof. We also find out exactly why the village was attacked. If you want to find out why, go read it yourself. Episode Kuro helps show Kuro's nature, not from internal monologues, that would be too simple. Instead, it's shown through visual storytelling and how he fights. Kuro doesn't hesitate to kill anyone. At the start of episode Kuro, we see how he puts himself in danger just to protect Aika. And when learning of what they are actually targeting, he races back to the village right after one of his many back-to-back fights. Instead of making this video triple its length by trying to describe what goes on in the fight, instead, I'll just tell you its purpose and significance. Episode Kuro shows us that he is willing to go to insane lengths to protect the people he cares about while showing his sacrificial nature. For example, in one moment of the fight, we see him protect a kid in exchange for being hit. His stubbornness, both shown right before as he refuses to rest, and during this as we see him continue to fight through while shit-talking even when he is exhausted. His shit-talking gets amplified the longer the fight goes on and the crazier he gets, which helps to show how he deals with all the weight and pressure everything in his life. Finally, we see how he actually does consciously save people. Unlike how with the cave you could argue that is situational, and with Rabao you could argue that's revenge. It's not even something he would admit himself. After episode Kuro, we get to see Mr. Ice's perspective, then we find out the entire full context of what happened. That is where the story is currently. What I plan next is to introduce some other characters who would participate in the Goodwill event and the rest of the lead-up before finally getting into the third phase. The third phase is going to be introducing 4 new schools in the Goodwill event and focuses more on how Shiro's skill set separates him from everyone else. We also get to see more of characters like Razor and Blave. If you want to find out more about my story, check out this video.